I've chosen, I've chosen to no longer notice that inner voice that suggests I'm lazy, and to likewise ignore the ever-increasing evidence that occupies space all around me. Things are not as they seem. I'm not a slothful, slovenly woman. It's just that I'm much happier now with all these free hours to write my poems, keep track of rejections, share my successes, frustrations, failures, as you've no doubt seen on Facebook. Yes, I know it looks bad, but I'm healthy, I promise. And I hope you'll accept my revised priorities, as has my husband, who, as you may have surmised, is also no fan of housework. This next poem I wrote about my brother, he's the one in our family who entertains us all with stories from the good old days at all of our family get-togethers. It's called High Winds Likely. My brother holds forth in the kitchen, his natural exuberance bolstered by the king of beers, his companion. Pressure plunges, the wind picks up, and now it's hailing high school hijinks and basketball glory all over our family reunion. The 1971 Southeast Conference free throw champ replays his and our adolescent escapades, while the Van Buren Bulldogs team coach classmates, cousins, neighbors, some long buried, crowd into the kitchen, lean into the huddle to listen, recall, and relive. Remember those kids? Remember that teacher? Remember the creek, those floats down the river? Remember the cyclone? Remember the flood? Remember that game where the whole team played hammered? That last second tie-breaking, game-saving dunk? Remember? Oh, say, remember that time? We think we might, but while the outside breeze blows Ozark Southern, here in the kitchen, the wind might come from any direction, whipping up a twister of fakes, shuffles, pivots, behind the back passes, so that with each recounting, a memory, like any good game, is fluid and unpredictable enough to astound us all over again. And this one is called In My Mother's Voice. I sit by her tomb as she chastises me, in a boneyard strewn with my country folk ancestors, neighbors, and friends, all bearing witness to memories and regrets, enshrouding me in silent rebuke, as she rather unkindly reminds me how I fled the Ozarks at 17, got above my raising, brought home my uppity up north accent, college learning, scoffed at my kinfolks' ain'ts and can'ts, double negatives, disregard for subject verb agreement. But that's past, she says. Other than that, you was a pretty good daughter. I've been right sorry I couldn't be there when you had them young'uns. I went and passed too soon. I done let you down, forgive me. On her grave, I left a dime store bouquet, conciliatory tears, some words I knew would please her. You never done no such a thing, I said. You was there the whole time. I seen you. This one is, I think a lot about getting old these days, and I write some poetry about that. And this one is called Rebellion. My hips have gone pirate, provoking unrest among thighs, discs, spine, their anarchic agenda forcing upon me that unacceptable acceptance of aging, that inevitable limp off the plank. Their selfish revolt has foiled my efforts to unify, strengthen mind, heart, and lungs, those more loyal functions who understand when Neptune beckons and the ship's going down, that's all the more reason to dance. And finally, I like music. I love music, and I like to write sometimes rhyming poetry. I like to play around with the rhyme in my poems. I wrote this one. It actually was published in an art and music journal called Wild Musette Journal. It's called, excuse me, A Poem in Three. Make me your love song in 3/4 time. Conjure me, count me in, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Whisper me, whistle me, dance me, romance me, woo me, infuse me with rhythm and rhyme. I'm a Viennese ballroom, a Tennessee dive. I'm denim and crinoline, sawdust and silver. Seduce me, unloose me, unwrap me, undo me, inhale me, consume me. I'm whiskey, I'm wine. I'll waltz across Texas. I'm Norwegian wood. I'm Strauss and Chopin, Jolie Blonde, Clementine. So wrangle, untangle me, Mr. Bojangle me. I'm Amazing Grace, Sweet Betsy from Pike. I'm Scarborough Fair on a Moon River night. So piano man, stun me, come fiddle strum drum me, croon me, retune me, twirl and unfurl me, then swing me and sing me in 3/4 time. That's it for me. Thank you.
So beautiful. Love it, Peggy.
Thank you.
You know, the order you chose was so nice, especially the final piece, the musicality of the final poem. It really had this great closure of all the pieces that you had earlier with family relationship, make it very attractive. You know, it's very nicely done. And your reading is very paced and very colloquial, feels very close to family, every members that you mentioned. Well done. Okay, so Gail, Rudd, take it away, Gail.
There we go. Hi, thank you. I just want to really thank the people who have put so much time and energy into making this happen. I'm especially happy that some family and friends of mine who live very far afield are able to be here for this. It's a great opportunity for me to share my work with people that I've never been able to share it with before in person. This first poem is called The Current That Language Makes Visible. Language, like math, is a structure, basic building blocks that we rely on to hold fast, 12 constant pronouns, the 2 binary articles, and all the lovely adverbs firmly, articulately, consistently telling us how to speak or run or laugh, the rational beauty of regular verbs, the majesty of conjugation, the bafflement of those mavericks is and was and has been, will be, would be, could have been, and oh, the glorious persons, places, and things to choose from at any given moment, an invisible word mall in the brain. Every brightly colored object a word with its own thumbprint, its denotation and its smudgier print, connotation, from which you are free to choose once you've got them on the shelf. And yes, they do a bit of shape shifting while you're looking away, and you have to get used to new arrivals, Ms., cisgender, cyberspace, come sailing in just as thou and peckish and bumbershoot stumble out the door. But the foundation blocks remain, keeping us safely speaking to each other intelligibly, writing sticks and dots and curves that mean specific, such specific things. The green lantern by the carved oak door on Sargasso Street. And though body language is indeed a marvelous thing, only words can say, this is what I want you to know. This is where and when. This is how. All these poems are from a manuscript that I'm sending out these days called Love in a Dark Time. And it's been a finalist in a few contests, but you don't get published unless you win. So I'm still working on that. Parting. Seeing someone off, you may have laughed, you may have waved as they disappeared into the crowd at the door of the airport, or as their car receded, their train lurched unevenly away down the track, their ship slid out of port, its wake churning, your loved one waving back from high up on an impossible deck. After the awkward or heartfelt embrace, once you had both stepped back and met each other's eyes, you may have made a false sounding remark to cover your pain or lack of pain. You may have given a quick arm pat and abruptly fled, or they may have grabbed up their pack, their jacket, and said they'd better hurry now. And you will have seen either that they were already gone, their mind turned to the adventure or responsibility at hand, you already behind them, a memory. Or you will have noted how they ducked or turned away to hide their face, the way it kept trying to give them away. And you too will have felt the inadequacy of parting. But there was nothing else you could have done. No direct line between the two of you beyond embrace, words flattering or glib, and both of you unable to bear it, wanting it to be over, and the long struggle, or freedom, begun. Visiting the Republican neighbors. Molly, our long-haired shepherd, being desperate to visit the large tan teenage Gibbs, her soulmate, we stop off on our evening walk as the fog rolls over the top of the far hill like a crashing silent ocean, and they rush to each other in the wide backyard, long suffering for their mutualness, and they run all out, bumping sides, mouth rubbing. They flip each other in the dark green grass, touches everything. They kiss and lean, jaw grabbing, one rolling, the other standing over. Then finally, they settle for some gentle nose poking, resting together by the water bowl, while we humans stand watching, feeling around in the dim light for some thread of commonality. We take a chair, lay out the usual family and career fare, knowing to avoid the vast wash of truths that could bring us to a halt of animosity. Within that narrow slant of last light, as the fog descends, we find it, for a small time, all smudged and moved by the beloved dogs, the warmth of fellow feeling. And these last few poems are poems that I've written over the last 8 to 10 years about my husband's illness. Nepenthe, which means, well, mainly it's a restaurant along the coast of Northern California, but it means the relief of grief in Greek. At the restaurant on the coast, having survived 3 flights of stone steps to sit at the counter along the rail on the top deck, we are overlooking the vast, blinding brightness of the sea. I am stunned by the effort it has taken, the lack of transcendence in the resulting bustle of ordinary eating and serving. We share a pulled pork sandwich, a slice of apple pie. We are mostly silent now. Our effort to be cheerful has washed us empty and clean. Finally, we stand to go, gather our jackets, bags, his slender new cane. As he comes along carefully avoiding the tables, the feet, I stand watching the water far below jostle and swell in its enormous bowl, and he joins me, turns back to the view. Is it mountains? He asks. After a moment, I take his arm. We turn, we walk away. Arriving late. He's asked me not to speak for him, despite his Louis bodies running amok, but here in fast duel, where words slice back and forth, laughter or fiery debate, he is always under the force field with its hot, excited zip, can never form his syllables in time before the polite pause left for him is ended with a forward leap by some impatient friend or articulate child making a point or a joke. Always now he is just turning a verbal key when the whole pack of drivers jumps into its vast cars, speeds off to the next topic, where he'll arrive late with a whole thought, just as everything is closing down, everyone buttoning up, waving, and once again speeding away. 2 more. For my blind man. You are walking in a formless space now, no down or up, no white or black, certainly no vermilion, no verdigris or rose. The food is shapeless on the floating plate, its taste known but unidentifiable, pie or pudding, bread or chicken, tofu or fish. With great effort, you rise up, stand, leaning into the light or wind or fearful thing coming. There is a chair. You sit back down. The dog below your knees is neither small nor large, but furry, dry, and warm. There is neither joy nor misery, no waking or sleeping. There is a bit of gravity. Water is good. But you are floating mostly, your lips parted, focused, trying to figure it out. You are always trying to figure it out, exhausting as it is. I arrive and press my face down onto your chest. I open your shirt. My mouth is real, not just a memory. My real lips are soft, and your skin recognizes my hands. You can picture my body young and naked. Your eyes look where my face should be, but there is nothing. Still, you are hearing my words arriving out of the nothing, and here are my knees along your flanks, my palms, my fingers solid and certain. You let go of the unknown, swim to me with all your might, the courage of your relief, my current sweeping you into a warm place, a destination, a moment's rest. Home, you whisper, home. And this last poem is called Blue Moon, the second full moon in a given month, occurring about every 2.5 years. And which isn't blue, but pearly as an abalone disc washed ashore above the rooftops. Just before bed, we shuffled out in our slippers and night clothes, in time to see it break free above the tree line, almost bouncing as the trees relinquished it, settled back into their quiet places, empty-handed. I helped you find it, that flood of light, with your broken eyes, and we stood there swaying with the trees, marveling. At the last blue moon, we must have been learning to stand to the newest loss, your cancer finally behind us, and the Parkinson's, your disintegrating vision waiting in the wings. At the next one, for all we know, we may be gone, nothing but a memory. And so I yipped a tentative yip, and then you yipped back in your crumbly voice that gives away a bit, falls back. And then my voice began to fill out, lift into a howl, and then neighbors be damned, another howl for both of us rose up, round and full of all the lost and broken things, lifted up in my chest, poured out of my throat, and the long high note spun all that loss into silver light. Thank you.
Wow. Gail, it's great. It's so beautiful. I lost a lot of people lately. I don't want to jump into that, but your poetry just touched very important, it touched me very greatly. So I just want to say, it feels so metaphysical, your poetry. It's so beautiful. Not only the title, but it just brings us to the speaker in a very metaphysical space about all your love, the speaker's strengths to withstand everything through love. So well done. And I love your reading voice as well. Okay, so we can have Marshell Lane. Thank you, Marshell.
Hi. Okay, my first poem is entitled The Mask. I wrote this pre-pandemic, so it's kind of ironic. I'm just gonna jump right in. When you look at me, tell me what it is that you truly see. I may look good aesthetically, but look again, is this really me? You see, every morning I lie awake and I contemplate which of my many masks will help me to get through this day. Is it the one that will hide my fear, my pain, my guilt, my shame, causing me to laugh with fake gladness, all the while driving me insane? Please stop the madness. This mask is penetrating my brain. So intertwined with my mind, sometimes I hardly even remember my name. But I've got to get going, so I just throw one on because I've got to save faith. Go out and contend with the fate and show everyone that I'm brave. Please help me, Lord, I've been saved. You forgave all my sins and buried my past, said that I am free yet and still I wear masks. But I'm so tired of the mask. The mask, the mask, the mask, it is scaring me. I once wore it proud and loud, but soon found out the mask was wearing me. I looked like a hairy beast. 2 slits for my eyes. Am I going blind? Or has it made it hard for me to see? Tiny holes for my nose. It's so suffocating that I can barely breathe. My soul's crying out, afraid, full of doubt, but there's no hole for my mouth and I can't even. Then it came to me that somewhere it is written that as a man thinks is so is he, and so is she. So I renewed my mind, elated to find the woman behind the mask. When I saw her, I was so in awe of her, I threw everything in the trash. Sorry, Mr. Dunbar, but never again shall I wear the mask. And this next one is called The Saxophonist. I was at an event and there was a guy who closed the event playing his saxophone. And I don't know, I just had an image come up and just started writing. I watched as he became one with his saxophone. As he blew, the melody was so freeing, harmonious vibrations pulsating so deeply. I closed my eyes and imagined we were one, and that saxophone was me. Snuggled tightly against his body, he leaned forward, bending me. When it got good, he arched back as far as he could, lifting me. The hem of my skirt rising as we danced, and he spinning me. I was intoxicated by his musical energy. Brass mixed with sass and class flowing into me. When performing, inside his inner self he goes. The crowd swaying, mesmerized, and I wonder if he even knows that his gifting has the ability to soothe souls, and wherever he blows, he sends love's notes. I went off in a trance when I saw that man playing his saxophone. So then I have poem number 3. It's called The Impression. Um, there is no explanation. He lingers like the indelible mark of an index finger, pressed into a ball of clay, thrown into the oven and baked. Sometimes I wonder how long it will take for his impression to leave me when he goes away. But he's got the kind of love that stays, like the smell of cologne long after it's sprayed. I breathe in his aroma and I feel myself sway. Every time I blink, instantly I see his face. I lick my lips and ironically, it's his that I taste. Chocolate infused with mint is what I start to crave. No wonder I cave. It's like a love Jones. I hear his voice in every love song. And when we joke, his laughter, it echoes on and on. I once imagined his touch and was thrown in my zone. He's left a mark on my heart, forever beating on. So if he's not around for just a moment too long, when he returns, I doubt myself, like, has he ever really been gone? So that's The Impression. This next poem is called Wedding Season. I was inspired by all of the pictures and posts that I see on social media of people's weddings and engagements. So I wrote this. They say it's wedding season. Well, let that be the reason I keep on believing in a season that's mine. Moments so amazing that on a daily basis, I simply replay moments in my mind, pressing rewind because I simply enjoy the time. So I want to savor every single second. Like the best thing I've ever eaten, I keep going back for seconds. I reckon this may be the best thing that's happened since before I left heaven for the first time. You put me in a heavenly state of mind. Righteousness defined, a love divinely designed. I savor the intricacies of our love intertwined. You gave me sight, though I once was blind. They also say that heaven is hard to find. Well, I think it's time to know that I've got heaven in you, right here by my side. And that's wedding season. And this last one is called Jackson Pollock. I like Jackson Pollock. I love art. Um, flexing me, flexing me, flexing me until I'm spent and there's nothing left in me. See, we began and now live in ecstasy, lovers and friends. He brings out the best in me. I am the canvas. He is the brush. Where's the paint? It's coming from us. We're making rainbows whenever we touch. With every stroke, he's making me flush. My heart was a prison, but there was no sun. His light shines so deep that new life's begun. I'll always receive his love, never shun. The colors so vivid when we become one. Words can't describe the feeling of true bliss. I break out the palette when we start to kiss. Their splatters, drops, zigzag lines, and drips. Loving him takes me on an instant trip. And it's so amazing, so messy, so beautiful, and so chaotic. The way we come together and recreate Jackson Pollock. And that's my last one. I'm sorry for the interruptions. I kept seeing comments come up, but that's my last one.
Very nice, Marshall. Jackson Pollock is one of my favorite painters as well. So yeah, we have a lot of similarity in this. And then there is so much musicality in this group of poets. You know, I just love all the poems you read, and then especially the first one that really about the new normal, the masks being very interesting poem. Really nice read. Okay, so let's let Mary Jane take away.
Unmute, I did it. Okay, I'm going to read a collection of my, what I'm calling my eco poetry, or my joy in this world, which I think was heightened in nature because of the pandemic. So this first one is called Cloud Fishing. A woman said, "Let us fish the sky. Why walk 5 hours for water when fog must read our minds? A net to drink in the world." A woman said, "Let us fish the clouds. They are our sea, our quivering water, unlocking grievances behind the eyes, waiting for the seep of night." A net strung up fine metal wire threads in weft and warp, a family of nets, thin like fingers on a raised hand, catches fog slinking in from the sea, rolling over mountains. Legend called this mist a sickness, desert growing death. People waited for the floods. As if in an afterthought, Zaina set the massive jar under the dribbling pipe. She gazed up, the nets furled, and whipped to the clouds around her. Water, collected, harvested from wells in the sky. My next poem is called Immortal Soul. I wake and I'm one person, and when I go to sleep, I know for certain I'm someone else. Bob Dylan, quoted in Newsweek. Will Earth become an island? I step out of the shadow into the clearing. I won't live long, they say. The multitude of waves break over the sand, holding the ocean like a prayer, the now. Friend Mary asked me once, "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" Rather than heed Christ and Longfellow, both now dead, I set out on a boat sail from Morro Bay. I played with whales, humpback, blue, right, gray, all order of cetacean, tooth, baleen, pygmy, belugas, narwhal, sporm, dwarf, and beaked, diving over limestone waterways. Our clockwork cosmos, O amygdala, you harbor the soul. Scientists have measured a field encircling the human head, a crown of thorns, a field radiating energies to inspire new thoughts, new theories, new frames of thoughts. Saffron, lavender, and a combination in between. William James may have said this once, "Summer at the seashore is a fine endeavor. Fledgling blue herons try their wings high in a stand of eucalyptus. Time to make strawberry jam, blackberry jelly later in the season. Chocolate roses, vanilla hydrangeas, anthurium, gloriosa, hibiscus, plumeria, cantua, crinkling lavender lupin." Jesters laughed, inventors invented gizmos to cover volcanoes. How much calculus does a nudibranch need to know? I sailed on my blue bicycle specialized. Ancient generals hitchhiked on the side of the road, alongside the spring peeper, chiming aside their boots in the grass. Rotavirus, retrovirus, supreme corona, the crown, virus. Poor despairing psyche, Circe waiting to be summoned, blood orange climbing the sky. How many leaves and petals have passed through my eyes? My soul rested on the side of the road with the old generals, baked apricots, watching cavorting of flocks of hummingbirds, metallic rate to undo us all, Blur, blur, blur. Then at night, a temporary topor, violet-tailed sylph, resting on a weeded branch, generating wind tunnels for us to glide through. Juncos drunk on grape hyacinth, a grand wind rushes under all creatures. Before moving on, a black hole shreds the sun. The driftless clouds, existence, a jigsaw puzzle of weather to wade through, rain, then hail, then monsoon, then desert, heat collapse, then. So, dear poet, I walk through the mirror of each day, no preservation needed. Lived in a bright wind, divine and dexterous, each second a fragment of ethereal time. O immortal soul. And here's a short one called Heron. On a morning of ceaseless wind, I watch the great blue heron swallow the wriggling rat. On spindle legs, she rocks her neck to clear her sinuous throat, a feast. A decade elapses, and this scene comes to me uninvited. The great bird, legs taut, alive in balance and intent. The wind again against my face, swallowed by all things hidden in beauty. And my final poem is called Awake in the Wild. Sunrise at 6:44 a.m. Dark gutters, neon sighs, Big Sur and Bigger Surly, snare drum sonatas. My city is waking early this morning. Walking up the hill near the Presidio, trees pull me up, opening my lungs to new air. The crows celebrate. The noisy party, the crow banter calling me to join them. Later, I promise. I'm taking a morning constitutional to the stand of redwoods up and over the hill. I've been exploring and resting in this dark cathedral during the entire pandemic year. I follow the least strenuous path. I've always worn a mask. Up a hill and then another incline, across a road, down a muddy trail, past a special tree blossoming with fluffy seed pods exploding into green. Later, it will be an anguish of vibrant iridium. In the copse of redwoods, I take down my mask, stroke the velvet bark, feel the landscape of the world in the quilt covering the vascular cambium. I breathe in the cold air around the tree. It's clean, safe. Redwood bark repels the virus, I tell myself. The velour bark of the young trees, 3 feet in circumference. Medicinal bark, I tell myself. Indigenous peoples made an herbal tea from this bark and dried powdered leaves to prevent scarring from burns. Here, take this one, she said. In the stand of redwoods on this Sunday, sunlight filters down to the center of the grove like archangels. Mother and son contemplate their newly built shelter out of the fallen branches, piled twigs. The mother's plaid jacket and dungarees, son's hoodie and faded jeans provide camouflage from the rest of the world. They stand in dappled light. A slight sudden gust rustles through the high canopy. Branches and twigs float down, then crackle to lie about, ready for the picking. The little boy holds a feather in his left hand. That's a perfect one to prop up the frame, Mom, he said. An airplane flies over. Noise sprinkles the city, reminders of pre-pandemic life. Walking into the trees lifts my heart skyward, the scent of redwoods. The unseen full moon sets in the west. Life thrives on death. I gaze at the detritus lying about the redwood trunks. Living in infinite present enhances the immune and other systems of the body. Uncertain tomorrow, usual. Uncertain next week, again usual. Uncertain of next month, too far away to care. Hard to plan for dinner at this pace. Nature comes and envelops me in its essence. I view the birds' nests an invitation to the rat snake. I answer the crow on my return home. The side-eyed jay jabbers about where I've been. Little boys with bats, my grandson included, call for my attention. My home broom idles at the base of the stairs, allowing the spiders to spin another day. The newt under the lavender bush aside the sidewalk. News today forecasts the next meteor speeding toward us millions of miles away, any day, any time. The morning light outlines the shade in my garden. The crow calls again. I'm moving, I say. That's all.
Nice, Mary Jane. There is so much timelessness in your poetry. It's beautiful. You know, it's timely because it's all post-pandemic, and then we are all talking about viruses, but you enhanced all these images with trees, leaves, and full moon. It's just so much images. Well done. Love your poems. Okay, and then the next reader, Jodi, you can take away.
Thank you. I'm Jodi Hottel, and I know that people have already thanked them, but again, want to thank Anne and Amanda and the Marin Poetry Center for keeping poetry alive during the pandemic. And to my fellow readers, I've never heard any of you before. It's been a pleasure listening to your poetry. I do want to warn people that this first one is might trigger some strong emotions in you, but I wrote it about 1 month after the George Floyd murder. 8 minutes, 46 seconds. The New York Times report I'm watching begins with footage from a security camera in front of a restaurant. 2 officers approach George Floyd's parked vehicle. 2 passengers reluctantly emerge, stand on the sidewalk. The call for police from the convenience store on the other side of the street alleged that Floyd was passing a counterfeit bill to buy cigarettes, that he seemed drunk. Yet when he squeezes out of his SUV in his black tank top, he doesn't resist handcuffs and slumps against the wall of the building. I notice a couple walk by spooning frozen yogurt out of paper cups, a woman with a fuchsia hijab. A city bus passes, and people on a bicycle built for 2 cruise down the street. And I think to myself that this incendiary moment must have seemed quite ordinary in this urban neighborhood. A backup patrol car arrives, tickets are written. George Floyd is taken across the street to the second patrol car. He's a brawny man, looking very much like the bouncer he was until he recently lost his job. Some officers posture, to me, a sign that they are fearful of Floyd and the gathering crowd. It has been over a month since this took place, and I've only seen snippets, reluctant to subject myself to the blunt force of the entire video. But now I feel like I must, like it's a civic duty. There are things I didn't know. According to the Times reporter, Floyd is already showing signs of distress before he's on the ground. He didn't want to get into the police car. That's when Chauvin shoves him on the ground and puts a knee on his neck, orders him, "Get up and get in the car." Floyd strains, "I will, I can't move." 2 others hold him down, one on his torso and one on his legs. Mind you, his hands are cuffed behind his back, and he's face down in the asphalt. The 4th officer, Chauvin's partner, makes sure no one interferes. Bystanders have begun filming. "Bro, he's not moving. Bro, get off his neck. He's human, bro." We hear George repeat, "I can't breathe," 16 times. He bawls for his mama. As I am recounting this, I realize my right foot is tapping on the floor. My mouth is dry. Then he's still, but the knee stays on his neck until EMTs insist Chauvin get off. It takes at least 4 men to heave George's limp body onto a stretcher. So this next one's very short, and some of you may know Gwendolyn Brooks's poem, We Real Cool. It's kind of modeled on that. And this was after the verdict, after the trial of Chauvin. Guilty, guilty, guilty. We, the jury, say guilty in every way. Guilty on all three. Guilty for pressing his knee. Guilty as sin. Guilty within. Guilty, we all share blame. Guilty, say his name. So all of these poems, except for the final one, were written during this pandemic year. But being in California, it couldn't just be a pandemic. It also had to be fire season. So this poem is called Because This Is California. And it was written about like in August when all the fires started happening. Because this is California, after I pour my morning cup of coffee, I refresh the fire incident map, then check the air quality app. The sky is tea-colored, and I'm not sure if I should go for a stroll, work in the garden, or stay shut indoors. Because this is California, Burning Man celebrants crowd Ocean Beach, despite the ban on large gatherings during the pandemic. And a conflagration is ignited by pyrotechnics at a gender reveal party. It's a boy. We're all edgy in the 6th month of this rift in our routines, but because this is California, we think we deserve a break, more than, say, Nebraska or Alabama. Because this is California, we know there's a giant snoring beneath the ground who might waken any day. Because this is our home, our golden state, we roll over in bed and check the latest Nixle alert, then go back to sleep to the lullaby of tanker planes. I'm sure some of you are familiar with Tony Hoagland, who is now deceased, but he's one of my favorite contemporary poets, and he wrote a poem called Special Problems in Vocabulary, and I kind of did a riff on it called More Problems in Vocabulary, after Tony Hoagland. There's no particular noun for the despair that chews your organs from the inside out till you're hollow. No verb for envying the dead, how they no longer fear, no longer need fear the air they breathe. No participial phrase for hunting for a source of hope, then tiring of the search. There's no expression, in English at least, for the loss of touch, that faint remembrance of skin on skin, brush of lips, the wondering if you only dreamt embrace. No adjective for wanting it all back because you never knew how little you knew. Certainly no name for skies that rain sticky soot, cast an orange gloom for the panic ignited in your pulse. Nor are there words for a bereaved mind, for towing the brink, then stepping back. This is the second to last one. It's very short. And if you had it in front of you, you would see that it's an acrostic. In fact, it's a double acrostic. So the first and the last letter in each line vertically spell the word pandemic. And that's the title of the poem, Pandemic. Trickier than it sounds. Possibly 2020 will prove the worst, but leap ahead to next year, the next vista, new mutations, each strain more brazen. Dread multiplies. May I find a path to tread, elude the despair that haunts, ease my ache, so I may conjure an uncharted realm, ink myself an alibi, create beneath the glimmer of a rainbow's arc. Okay, and the last poem, Marshell mentioned wedding season, but this is out here, Marshell, it's now fire season. So this is an older poem. I wrote it in 2018. The second year we had tons of wildfires, and we were affected by the 2017 Tubbs fire in that it came within 2 blocks of our house. And so I had a little bit of PTSD the next year. It's called Fire Season Blues. I got the fire season blues. Yeah, I got the fire season blues. Don't care to remember all there was to lose. This morning on my car, I find the ash I thought I'd left behind. Fear and panic flood my mind. Sometimes I just want to cry. Others, I just want to die. I throw my hands up to the sky. I got the fire season blues. There are fires here and fires there. Seems there's fires everywhere. Smoke and ash done filled the air. 17 fires, the latest news, and there's nowhere near enough fire crews. Our mama Earth done lit a fuse, and I got the fire season blues. Thank you.
Great, Jodi. Such a great poem to end your selections. You know, I've not heard so many poems in social and civil justice. I applaud you for being so strong on these courses, and thank you for your compliment for MPC. That was very beautiful. And we will have our hour gone, and it's so it just feels so quick. And then we have our last reader, Susan, to take it away.
Hello. Well, it's very nice to be here, and thank you to Amanda and Anne and everybody who put this together. I'm going to read, I think, all new poems. Just a few. I'm just going to read 3. But thank everyone for their beautiful work. This is called Still Doing It. I know something's cooking when you give me that look, your eyes appearing slightly crossed above your CPAP mask, which you start taking off, the mask that saves you from death by apnea, but makes you look like a snorkeler from dreamland or an escapee from a tear gas fight. And I'm excited, but I've got my own gear to deal with, especially in winter, tugging off my socks and grappling with my flannel pajamas and beret and scarf. Yes, it's that cold in here because you don't like the heat on when you sleep. And we've been arguing about this since we met, but we're getting fired up. I hear the farting, whooshing sound of air going out of the CPAP box while I uncap the bottle of Sliquid, setting it on the windowsill, glancing at the label that says botanically infused, which I've learned means we won't die if we get it in our mouths. And I negotiate the physics once again of how to shove Sliquid upward as we move around enthusiastically but carefully so as not to hurt your disintegrating discs and pinched nerves or my sore hip and wrecked knee. And we're almost in place like trapeze artists who've had an accident when the cat jumps up on the bed and nestles between my feet and I'm on top of you despite my bad knee for better aim and leverage with one foot on its toes, trying to keep my meniscus from hitting the mattress and the cat's purring, and it's hard to concentrate, but by God, we are going to do this, and we do it. Our 30 years together, not exactly disappearing because they're stuck on our faces. Oh, hot damn, hallelujah. And I slowly roll off and we lie side by side, asking each other, are you okay? Smiling at the ceiling as if we've won a prize. The cat, ignoring us as usual, licks her privates. So yeah, that's a poem about having sex when you're old, and it's published in Poetry Magazine. And I just have to show you that, because I've been trying to get into Poetry Magazine for a number of years, and of course my poetry just does not do it, right? But for some reason now things have changed, and I wrote a poem about having sex when I'm ancient, and it got in there. So I think, I think Poetry Magazine has changed, and it's become more human. All right. So I know that's terrible. I shouldn't be saying that, but I'm saying that. Okay, now the next one is along the same lines of bodily experience, and it's called Strawberry. When I got my period, there wasn't any sweetness in sitting on the toilet waiting for my mother to return from the store with the white rowboat I'd have to wear between my legs once a month for the next 38 years. It was summer, the strawberries ripe in the backyard where my father was sweeping the patio, walking over to the bathroom window to say, okay in there? Uh-huh, I said, shuddering in embarrassment and lying. But who told the raw, sodden, biological truth? My mother, my father, my sister, at least one of them might have let me in on the devastation of menstruation. I mean, I'd heard of it, like I'd heard of death, a vague rumor or something that happened to anyone other than me. I wasn't even sure yet if I wanted to be a girl. Being female was a truth I couldn't escape, but that didn't keep me from trying. I left my baby dolls my aunts and grandmothers gave me in the dirt while I tore around the neighborhood with Carl and Doug, riding bikes with our shirts off and throwing Swiss Army knives at each other's feet, seeing how close we could get. I disliked curlers, cooking, sewing, and women in movies looking stupid as drool, crying when some douche gave them a diamond ring and a glass of champagne with a strawberry in it. I hated strawberries. Everybody making a big deal how good they tasted when I thought they were way too sugary and sticky and the seeds got stuck in your teeth. And now they reminded me of my period, a word I couldn't stand. Why the hell blood dripping out of a body was called a punctuation mark. Oh yeah, it was something about time. And here I was at the beginning of this cycle that would ruin every season, including my favorite. How could I go swimming, wear a bathing suit, was all I could think about as my mother arrived and helped me strap on the contraption of doom. She, to my great relief, did not say anything as horrifying as, "You're a woman now." I would have stabbed her with my Swiss Army knife. She tiptoed away as I sat in my bedroom, my insides cramping like I'd swallowed a pitchfork, the sun blaring in the window and blowing strawberries at me. A few years later, I was allowed to use a tampon, but no one told me how that worked. So I jammed it in with the cardboard still on and hobbled out of the bathroom, my legs bowed. When I asked my sister and her friend why it didn't fit, they laughed so hard, rolling around on the floor. Another soggy kind of hell while I tried to get it out and they left for the beach. When they returned, eating strawberry frosty cones, I was reading a novel and recovering from PTSD. I'm lying about the cones, but let's just say I took a taste anyway. I'd met a boy at a dance that summer. It was like a line drawn in blood on the grass, and I slid into another world. Well, I amuse myself with my poetry. Anyway, I hope you find it the least bit funny. But anyway, I'm in that kind of mood. The pandemic, the hell with that. I mean, we got to move on, please. All right, Blue Disco. Blue Disco, this is my last poem, but it is about the pandemic. How can we get away from that? Yeah, we may never get away from that. So we need to keep laughing. Blue Disco. Sunlight after 3 days of kiss each drop of rain as it falls. Yeah, and also the fires. Okay, starting over again. Blue Disco. Sunlight after 3 days of kiss each drop of rain as it falls. Sunlight on my hand as I take my racket out of its jacket. Sunlight on the ball like a ball of sunlight. Sunlight as we decide who'll serve first and which side, and she tells me her mother died. Alzheimer's, then COVID, nowhere to take her for 3 weeks. Too many corpses waiting to be cremated. Sunlight on her face as she says this. Sunlight on her collarbone shining with sweat. Sunlight on the small silver hoop in her ear. On our breathing together through words like, I'm sorry, it's okay. She was 92. Sunlight on the bench where we sit after the game, and she says yesterday she finally got her mother's ashes, and we're silent. And out of the blue, staying alive. And how can we help it? We shimmy and shake. All right, thank you very much.
Wow, Susan, just we are so gracious to have you. You know, we spent 1 hour and in the final 10 minutes, we have you here as a great example of not only spoken and written poetry, but also performance poetry. We enjoyed your 10-minute reading, really. And then that poem, that sex poem on Poetry Magazine, it's a killer poem. Love it. It's a real true dynamite. Okay, thank you for being here. And I just want to take a time to talk, you know, to congratulate every reader here, all 6 of us, Peggy, Gail, Marshell, Mary Jane, Jodi, and Susan. You did a great job. We enjoyed your reading, and we can't wait for the next episode to kick off in 2 weeks. Okay, so feel free to let your friends to join us and then join the NPC. You know, for this wonderful traveling show events as well as other events, and then hope you enjoy your summer. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you for having me.
Great work. Keep writing. All righty.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
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 Bye.